And start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. What do we got going on here? All right, good evening. We'll get started right away with the approval of tonight's agenda.
Just a reminder for everybody to turn your microphones on.
Got a motion by Roy. Second by Mary. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3 is to approve our consent calendar, which is the minutes of the previous meeting and payment of bills.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Doug, second by Tom. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Moves us to item number 4, and that's presentation of annual Staples Fire Report by Fire Chief Cole Youngbauer and approval of officers for 2021. Welcome, Cole. I don't know.
Cole, maybe if you come over and operate off the end of the table here, we'll be able to get you on the microphone.
So annual report, in 2020, we responded to 67 requests for assistance, which is slightly down from last year. We were operated with 24 firemen. I broke it down into townships that we responded to. We have our township contract coming up next week, I think. So we'll be doing that again. And then we had just a few mutual aids with other surrounding agencies. And on page 12 is our officers that were elected this year for the fire department. We had a few changes. We had a few guys stay the same. And, I took over as chief this year.
You can see how we got a little bit more detail in the report this year, which is kind of interesting. How many calls the fire department goes out on where a fire isn't necessarily involved. So.
Yeah.
Interesting to see that. Some affect standby fees in townships. Cole's got it indicated on here, those vehicle accidents, which do not. So.
Any questions that I can answer? Annual report?
Oh, it looks like you put a lot of time into it. Thank you.
No, thank you. Best one yet.
Well, I think Cole would concur 2020 was kind of a strange year for the fire department, just like it was everybody else, you know, as far as trainings and meetings and, you know, really tried to kind of limit, you know, that contact so we didn't run into situations where we didn't have enough firefighters to respond when their pagers go off. So slowly start to get back to some state of normal, but keep trying to keep an eye on what the guidance is out there. And as Cole said, next, I was going to talk about this in my report, but February 24th, actually at 7 o'clock, is the annual meeting with the townships. It's not a contract renewal year, so basically it's an opportunity for the townships to come and ask questions about, you know, the formula that is utilized to calculate their standby fees. Anticipate that will go pretty good. So.
That's being held here, right, instead of at the
Yeah.
fire hall?
Yeah, we give give an option for, township supervisors and so forth to Zoom in if they prefer to do that.
Congratulations on getting the chief's job.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's,
A lot of our guys are excited. We've got some new stuff. We got some cool new training that they're started on. We just had a bunch of, we had 3 new guys that we hired last year that just started training tonight. So, and
My understanding that you won by 1 vote?
yeah,
That's exactly how I won too. Narrow margin, so it, and it, but it's,
yeah, so,
I had a great experience with it and I'm sure you will too.
yeah, it's fun. We just had some retirements, so we'll be hiring some new guys here in the near future too.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so we need, thanks. Cole. So we need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay. Got a motion by Mary and second by Doug to approve the 2021 Staples Fire Department officers. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, well, good luck with it, Cole. We'll move on then to item number 5, and that's commission reports. Oh, Melissa's on the TV, I guess. So we have 2 of them.
Hey, guys.
We have Sita and Public Works, so we'll start with Melissa. Welcome.
Thank you. So we met on January 26th. Our new business included the Wadena County. We had 2 presentations that night. So one was from Katie Hepner with the Economic Alliance. So what she had done is she commissioned a housing study for all of Wadena County. And then within that study, there's individual reports out for each of the individual communities within that. However, of course, we're split between Todd County and Wadena County. So in our discussions, we decided we were going to do all of Staples, including the Todd County side. She is going to be presenting to you guys. So I'm not going to dive very much into that report out, just knowing that the EDA has been informed of what that study states, which is perfect timing because because the EDA has been talking so specifically about housing these days. So you guys will see that report from Katie. So I will let her kind of have that shining star of all the good things that they had to say. The next presentation we had was from the chamber. As we have been informed over the last few months that there's a lot of new things happening with the chamber with Motley and Staples splitting. The Staples Chamber has obviously taken on the new name and they have combined with the Discover Staples. And with that, they kind of shared kind of the new goals and mission. Well, they're working on the mission, but the new goals and plans for what the chamber is planning to do going forward. They did approve again the memorandum of understanding for the for hosting the 2021 CEC conference. CEC is Connecting Entrepreneurial Communities. That was supposed to be hosted in Staples in 2020, but of course with COVID, we had not been able to do that. So they did an online version that they did without our community. And then this year we are hosting it with them and we just automatically received that opportunity to host that. So we are working on that as a group and they had to approve that memorandum. In addition to that, we are advertising in the IQ magazine for the next 2 issues, which is a spring and a fall issue. I want to say it's March and October. And so they approved a half-page ad. The full-page ad is $825, which we are likely going to be splitting with the Discover Staples, which will give us some really good exposure. And we're focusing on the shovel-ready site out at the industrial park, as well as the commercial site along Highway 10 there. Let's see. We talked about the COVID response and business assistance. So both Todd and Wadena County have opened their grant program to the businesses that have been affected by the by the governor's orders, and it can extend beyond the direct shutdowns. However, that is on both sides, that is their number one priority, is those immediate shutdowns, those businesses that were unable to operate due to that executive order. And then those who are affected by that, such as catering and hotels, et cetera, can also apply to that. But they'll get secondary and third payments out to them, I guess, or approvals, depending on how many of the first tier apply. Staples Motley Area Community Foundation is also doing a grant program. They have $10,000 available to those businesses, very specific to the ones that were forced to shut down due to that executive order. And based on the number of applications that they received, they're going to divide that money up based upon the need, and probably likely going to be pretty even across the board with each of them. So we did just review those kind of beyond what I had for my CETA board. We did just review those yesterday. And I want to say we had 9 applications come in. So it's really good that they're able to help out those businesses as well. We did talk about West Central Telephone Association as there's been a lot of discussion with at the CETA board about housing, and specifically single family housing. We have had discussions with West Central Telephone Association about bringing fiber into that community, into that area. They are served, but they're not served with high speed. And so we're trying to figure out a way that we can get that served to that area, which will also help us to market that to additional single family home developers and or families. The welcoming communities, we did receive that grant through the Region 5 Development Commission. It comes with $10,000. So we're going through some training around inclusive businesses, inclusive communities, et cetera. And that we have come up with 2 programs. One is the NEA Big Read Project. Katie Hepner is leading that project. And then I am leading the implicit bias training, which is growing and growing and growing. So one of the things that we're doing is working with Central Lakes College to create a customized training program for businesses in our region to help them understand the benefits and to gain this IWE, which is Inclusive Employer certification that they can receive, and then they get a lot of benefits if they get that IWE designation. And so we're working with Central Lakes College to do that. We're also planning to host a intro to implicit bias and or inclusive employers at the chamber dinner, and then offering that IWE designation, whether that be through the Central Lakes College, and then kind of doing a cohort, if you will, of 5 to 7 businesses in our community that would maybe want to be part of that and kind of go through that process together. And then in the end, we would become a community that has multiple businesses that have that designation, which would allow them access to additional employees. The Bachelor Block Opera House, at the time of this meeting, we didn't have that much of an update, but now we have received $10,000 from funding agencies, and we will be able to, actually our consultant has already started, so we are able to start that fundraising process for that other $8.5 million that we need to get. We'll be going back out for bonding in 2022 for the other 50%. So as long as we can start showing that we have started that process of fundraising and have a good plan in place for how we're going to get there, we are likely, of course, it depends on who the legislators are and how they feel that year, but the feedback was we will likely get that designation or those dollars from the state once we have been able to show that we can raise the other dollars. So we're kind of moving down that process. We are also working on getting the Bachelor Block Opera House nonprofit set up legally. At this point, the fiscal agent is LEAP. So those things are all happening with the Bachelor Block Opera House, and we're moving forward. And this summer, you'll see some more activities coming with that. One thing we did talk a little bit about was under the executive director's report is a name change. So my last name has gone from Rademacher to Wyman due to life changes. And so as you guys are like seeing emails coming from me, you're going to see Melissa Wyman as opposed to Melissa Rademacher, just kind of a FYI for everybody at the table here. And then we did decide that come here in February, our next meetings will be in person with a Zoom option if necessary, but not ideal. We want to do primarily in person if possible, but those who are unable to attend or unwilling or uncomfortable can also have that Zoom option. And then we ended our meeting at 6:28. I'm happy to answer any questions though.
All right, any questions for Melissa? All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a safe trip home. Oh,
Right on.
that's- All right, I guess she got off. All right, we'll move on then to Public Works, and Scott is over there in the corner.
Okay, so with Clyde retiring, we had to replace the lead, and Bruce Grandal is the new lead. And also, we interviewed 4 candidates to be the next operator. We had 16 applicants, and there was a lot of good ones. We interviewed 4, and then we did select Opie Mertens was our choice to become the next operator. We had a couple customers that had some water leaks that were outdoor. This is not uncommon for us to forgive sewer charges on those. We just come up with a kind of look at a billing history and what their normal water usage would be, and then do a calculation on that and give them their sewer charges for that. The big item on the Public Works agenda was the issue of overbilling. We had done a customer review, and we discovered that on some of the large commercial customers who get billed on peak demand, we're getting billed incorrectly. There was a formula that was used before. There was a change, that formula was eliminated, and then we just went to billing on demand strictly without, it used to be a minimum charge. We eliminated the minimum charge, but that did not get into the billing software. So we caught it, we've corrected it, and now we have to refund some of our customers. I do have a sheet that has a breakdown, which I can provide anybody. And then if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
And that 3-year overview was based on the limit that as far back as.
By
we
the
can go.
state,
Yeah.
yep. Yep, it was, go back 3 years.
And 2 of the affected were part of they weren't in there for 6 or 8 years
Right,
either,
yeah,
so-
actually, our 2 biggest ones we're able to go back to, they had less than 3 years, so.
How many total?
60.
11 total. Several of them are just going to be a refund on their bill because they're so small that it'll get used up in one billing cycle. So it really only affected customers who would have big changes in their demand. So like if somebody has a lot of air conditioning in the winter time or something like that, where their demand would go up, but then, maybe in the fall, they're not using it, and it would go down. When they have a big discrepancy, then they would be affected. somebody like 3M who runs machinery and just stays constant or fairly close, you know, there's no error there. So didn't affect all of them, but did affect several.
So would you like a motion from the council to approve that? Or is it?
I think we did,
The
I
public
think the
works
checks,
com-
yeah, I think
The
the
bill, payment of bills.
bills were
Oh, okay.
out, so in the checks. But if anybody has any questions, or would like to see the breakdown, I can provide that. And then, last thing was, as usual, is just an update on the wastewater treatment plant. Things were going, still going on pace. They had actually done some excavating a couple weeks ago to start on another one of the structures. And then just so happened they were reducing their crew because they were, because of the work that they were doing when it got real cold. So it's good timing on their part. So I think they're down to a handful of guys when the real cold set in. But yeah, if you drive by there, you can see that they're making progress. They expect to be treating water in July and expect to be completed in September.
Good. All right, any questions for Scott? Okay, thank you. Well, that'll take us to open forum. Anybody's got anything? All right, then we'll move on to a COVID-19 update, and then we'll move right into city administrator's report.
Okay, not a whole lot new, again, on the COVID front, which I guess is good news. Numbers continue to be really quite low here in Todd and Wadena County and going down across the state. I'm sure everybody is aware of that. One thing we're kind of trying to get a sense of with some of our critical infrastructure employees is at what point vaccines might be made available to them. I think we're down the food chain a little bit, but gonna kind of keep an eye on that, give those employees the opportunity to get that vaccine if they choose to do that, so. Last month, basically no guidance changes or executive orders, either tightening or loosening some of the restrictions. So we're kind of watching that closely to, you know, things like, you know, community center, fitness center, you know, 25% of capacity, you know, these types of numbers that were, you know, kind of limit the activities that can happen there. So as soon as we can, according to the guidance, we'll start increasing that. So that's pretty much it for COVID. I don't know, Mary or Ron, you guys have anything from Lakewood?
Yeah, I do happen to have something. I heard on the news over the weekend that the state, for about the 85th time, is changing their distribution pattern. And we're used to getting ours through the coalition, and it was supposedly going back to that by the 15th. But we are still struggling to get it. Tim said this morning at our meeting that they have 900 people on the waiting list. All us old people are on that list. And you know, we're getting like 300 doses, and so they're scrambling to find more, as all the communities are around here. So working with public health and with the coalition, and so just stay tuned. The latest batch they got, they had been, this was Moderna, they'd been using Pfizer. So if you had a Pfizer initial, you had to have a Pfizer secondary, and same with Moderna.
Yeah, same story from Todd County. I talked to David Detterman, and, you know, many of you probably got the code red alert, you know, saying call, you know, down there, and I think they had 100 doses and had 600 or so calls in the first hour, so. it's gonna be a matter of getting, getting the vaccines. I think the systems to actually vaccinate people are in place around here, but can't do it if you don't have them.
And people really appreciate the drive-by, by the fish house, come out, wait your 15 minutes, honk the horn if you have anything of note, and then off you go. And I hear more positive comments about that than anything else so far. So hopefully we'll get what we need.
Good. So jumping down to the city administrator's report, the Coalition of Greater Minnesota Cities had their legislative action day virtually, which is not quite the same as driving to St. Paul, but it's kind of nice not driving to St. Paul. One of the big things, obviously, that the coalition pushes for is local government aid, and obviously in the situation right now, the big thing is to keep it at least the same. I don't think anybody's anticipating any kind of LGA increase, but really to try to keep, keep that funding at the same level. The legislators that were on the call, and then also Governor Walz, have all kind of signaled that they're, that's not what they're looking for, because they realize that that cities, especially in greater Minnesota, there's financial impacts from COVID already. Don't necessarily want to compound it, but we'll see what what the 8 people in the dark room at midnight on the last day of the session decide to come out with. So I'm not offering an opinion on the process, by the way. Wastewater treatment plant, Scott kind of touched on that, but there are monthly progress meetings that we have with the contractors and engineers, and things are going well. We've been really pleased with Magny. All reports are that they are a very good contractor and plugging away, and with the weather that we've had, they should finish a little bit early, as Scott was saying. I mentioned when Cole was giving his report, February 24th, 7 o'clock, here in the council chambers, the township meeting. So if any of the council members want to come and attend that, feel free. And then also with a couple of new officers that have been elected, I'm meeting with Cole every month just to try and provide some training, getting him comfortable with the city, payroll stuff and payable stuff, and all of those things. So we've got another meeting coming up on Thursday, and talk Relief Association and some of those things. So it'll be good. He seems eager to learn, and I think it'll go well. So. Street operator interviews, as Scott was saying, 16 applicants. I bet there was probably at least 10 that would have, probably been considered for interviews. So it was a really good pool. We're very pleased, and we're excited with Opie, and I think he starts next week. Tuesday? Yeah, gets a holiday as first name. So that'll be good, but he's got very good experience in a lot of the areas that will benefit us. So Trish shared at the Park and Rec Board, we had the bid opening for the Dower Lake Storm Shelter. They did come in a little higher than anticipated, so we're working with the engineers and then also with FEMA to try and figure out what our options are for that, but we'll keep you posted. And at Planning and Zoning meeting last week, I think it was our first one since October, because Doug is the technologically advanced one of that group, right?
I don't know. I don't think I made it yet.
No, you didn't. The first one we have in person, Doug skips it. But no, it was good, good to start having meetings in person again, so. Happy to report that our AV system, we've now had 2 meetings in a row where everything worked. That was after pretty much a full day of the tech up here last Friday. He did change out some equipment and programming, and I came in Friday afternoon and tried to make it not work, and I couldn't, so I'm slowly gaining some confidence in it, so. Then the last thing, just wanted to bounce off the council. I was talking with Scott Sadusky this morning, and he was asking where we're at as far as starting to do rental inspections again. You know, as you recall, last spring, COVID came along, there was a lot of concern voiced by tenants of rental properties that they didn't want, you know, some stranger coming into their home. So we basically suspended those inspections, and, you know, I would say, you know, maybe March 1st, start cranking them up again. I don't know what everybody's thoughts are on that, but.
Where are we at as far as,
Oh, we got a long way to go. I mean, I have to get the numbers probably from Jeff, how many had a first inspection, but not very many have had a second, and not all of them have even had a first. So we were anticipating being able to get through all of them in 2020, but obviously by the time middle of March came, it was pretty much cut off, so. So we've been doing complaint-based inspections, but we have a long list to get to, so. And the reason I'm bringing it to the council to ask your opinion is because you may have people coming to the meetings complaining about us trying to force our way into their rental property during a pandemic, but.
Well, I guess anytime you feel it's safe, or Scott feels it's safe to go into these places, because he's the one that's most dangerous. He's in danger of going into these houses. So,
Yeah, and when I was talking to Scott, I'm like, if there's people that are in any one of those risk categories, or they express that, I don't want to take the chance or whatever. Now, you put that as the headline of the paper, we'll have lots of people that are very concerned about, about a stranger in their house during a pandemic, but I'll talk with Scott a little bit and see where Jeff is at, and, there may be a whole slew of them that we can get done without any resistance, so.
That's what I was gonna ask, is there a way that we could make phone calls or call the rental properties and say, hey, are you willing? If they say no, put them on a no list, and then, or is there just that many that's not even feasible to do?
Well, no, they call to make appointments.
Oh, okay.
The challenge is the ones that we need to get into the worst will say no, if asked that question, so.
well, I think it's kind of, isn't it more up to the landlord than, I mean, I know the renter probably has a little say in it,
Yeah.
but to be honest with you, I think that, the landlord could be there and the renter could vacate the property for the 30 minutes that it takes.
There's that potential, so, I mean, I'm not saying that every one of them is gonna be an issue, but I think in the fairly near future here, we could probably start them up and not push too hard on people that don't want it, but still be able to
I think for the
click
ones
off a number of
that
them.
have gotten them done and are paying the money that is required annually, and then watching the other ones not get done is kind of probably frustrating to them.
So, you want us to do yours, is that what you're saying?
I've already paid twice.
So, all right, I think that got a sense of what we'll crank them up here before too long, so. Other than that, that's all I have, unless anybody has any questions.
move that we adjourn.
I did read in the
Can't.
League of Minnesota Cities magazine that and I don't know, I guess I kind of take it as probably a little bit of a warning shot that there's talk of a 25% reduction in the LGA possibly coming. And then I was reading in another Minnesota magazine where it kind of spelled out the same, possible 25% because of the deficit, to cover the deficit. I remember all too well in 2007 when we got that reduction, I think it was 2007, wasn't it, or 8? Somewhere in there.
I think, yeah, 8 or 9, the unallotment.
But I know that, I know that it, there was a lot of scurrying and a lot of things happening, and and it did talk about some cities that are kind of gearing up for that potential. So it kind of sounds, metro cities and things that probably have maybe a little better heads up on it than us, I don't know. But I guess, what I was thinking is that, maybe we should work that way a little bit, just to, might be a thought to try to work that way so that we don't get caught with, in a situation where hopefully, because I remember back there was talk of laying people off and all this other stuff, during that time. And it was pretty tense. It was tense for the council, it was tense for the administrator, it was a lot.
Well, and what happened, back when the unallotment happened, I remember it must have been probably maybe it was the first year we were in this building.
Yeah.
So maybe that was 2010. On the whiteboard in the conference room, basically saying, all right, here's the number we need to get to, because that would have been, I think it was in December, instead of getting the second half LGA payment, we were getting substantially less than that. And so I know that there's some people that are talking about that, like I say, the coalition legislative, leaders weren't, but politicians, so.
There's some of them that might be up for election coming up, so they're probably not gonna talk about it till it absolutely happens to them. I mean, I guess what I was reading, it seemed like it was not, obviously it's people talking, but
Yeah.
you know what happens when people talk.
Yeah. Well, and as we start having, as the legislature starts having more and more budget, deep budget type discussions, if there's, any movement in that direction, we'll develop a plan to deal with it.
So did the legislators talk about that when they,
Yeah, they did.
Zelka and,
It was, I think Hartman, Doubt, I can't remember. It wasn't the Senate Majority Leader,
I thought-
Zelka, or Minority Leader.
I thought Gazelka was gonna be there, but.
Yeah, it was two people I wasn't familiar with, but they're, like tax committee type people or whatever. But, there was really no indication that was the direction that they were going, but that's 4 people, so.
Did they talk about the last time that it happened, before it happened?
Well, it was telegraphed by the governor last time, because, that was the governor that did that.
Well, and that's just it. There's 2 approaches to it, really. The last time we were hitting with the unallotment where we just did not get, it was budgeted and just didn't get all the LGA. And then the other, it would be in the next budget that we would have to then
But it was
reduce our budget for it.
It was a permanent reduction, right?
Well,
It was gone, when they did on allotment, it stayed that way, right? They didn't.
No,
No.
the unallotment
Yeah.
wasn't that way. It was the second half payment of, I want to say 2010. But that was just the governor that did that. Back before that, there may have been one, because, the coalition always talked about 2002 as, they're pushing and striving to get back to the 2002 funding level. So maybe between 2002, 2003, there was a big reduction as part of the state budget.
Yeah, the budget reduction versus the unallotment. And
Well, I
that, there's
guess
just,
I'm just, you
Yeah.
know, looking at it from,
a budget reduction would give us more time to
right.
prepare
versus the governor coming out and like they did in 10 and went.
Because the unallotment, we've already got our,
Yeah.
our budget's in place.
Yeah.
You know, we're expecting a payment in, you know, July and December, and we're, you know, 11 months into a budget cycle, anticipating that revenue coming in, and then it doesn't come. So, unallotment's a lot harder to react to.
Yep.
than
That's the bad one.
budget.
Same.
No, yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
I move that we adjourn.
Motion by Roy and second by Ron to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Yeah, figure out how to get all this shut off. Night, everybody.
Nate?
Keep warm.